Influence is confused in the virtual world. People often confuse it with popularity. They'll often confuse it with transparency and reach. And those things actually aren't what influence is about. Influence is about context around relationships. So people who have expertise and value and context around relationships and topics tend to become the people that are truly the most influential. So simply because you had two people that were subject matter experts, and one had an incredibly large Twitter following and one had a meek Twitter following, the one, if they have a better context and a better relationship to content production ratio, they're actually going to outweigh the other based on numbers. There's a confusion that this is a numbers game, and it isn't. So the key area of influence, and I think marketers talk about this a lot, is when you're in the virtual self and speaking to someone in the virtual self, you become more influential by being more transparent and by being more open and honest, which is what brands struggle with. For the last decade, without really talking much about it, human beings have diverged. We have a division of self. There is our physical identity and how we act and behave in the physical world, and then there is our identity and how we behave in the virtual world. And why do we care? We care because vast number of folks in the developed world spend more of their time interacting with other people in their virtual identity than they do in their physical one. Whether you're on a phone call, instant messaging, Skype, whatever it is that you spend your time, social networking, it really doesn't matter, email. So the first order of business is understanding the difference between influence in those two worlds, and I think they're very different. One of the key characteristics of a virtual self and a virtual identity, which is what we deal with in people all day long, is that we are young. We are effectively toddlers to adolescents, depending on the time you got actually into the digital economy, which means we tend to be more trusting. We tend to do things in the virtual environment we would never do in the physical one. And at the same time, we have a responsibility as companies and people working with people around how we market and speak to one another. Most people talk about that in the context of you just got to do it because it's expected. The reason it's expected is because we are children in that world. And so you wouldn't go out, and we're very careful about the rules about how we market to children in the physical environment, the things we can offer. The city of San Francisco no longer allows marketing of toys in fast food meals. We don't have any of that in the digital space. So the more transparent you are and the more authentic you are in your communication, the better off you're going to be and the more influence you're going to have. And that, to me, is what influence is all about in that virtual self. It's the people who contribute, the people who are authentic, they're completely transparent about the good and the bad, and they have a context into a subject that people understand and can relate to. And that influence could be small but powerful, or it could be broad and weak.